Good evening, students. Yes, we are talking about the history of English literature, and in history of English literature, so far we have covered Anglo-Norman and Anglo-Saxon period. Yesterday we have seen that is the third and very important chapter that we have started, that is the age of Chaucer. Okay, as I told you, that is Geoffrey Chaucer is considered as the father of English literature and specifically the father of English poetry. As we just try to find out this age of Chaucer, it was a period of transition and turbulence, as I told you. This age was a meeting ground of these two divergent periods, that is the old and the new, the medieval and the Renaissance. Specifically, though the spirit of these Middle Ages had not yet passed away, the seeds of this modernity were being sown, and this period witnesses these remarkable social, religious, and political changes. As we go further and see that it was a period that this crucial 100 years war between the England and France took place, and how these two countries emerged as uh, the strong companion of each other, and specifically the two powerful powerful pillars of that particular society of the age. Okay, in that case, we already had talked about the social and cultural background, where I have told you that is the emergence of the middle class was one of the important event in this regard. Economical background, we had talked about these trades and commerce which was increased in this period, and religious background of this age, where as we talked about it, that several changes had occurred when we find that these translations of Bible was started in the period, and the church was working hard. In that case, we can't deny the contribution of John Wycliffe, then Lollard, one of them, that is this Lollard movement, and all stuff will talk about it very soon. Mm, But as we just go and try to find out the literature of this age, it was nothing but we can call it as an alliterative revival. Okay. Mm, but before moving towards this alliterative revival, and specifically these world poets and several other writers of the age who had played an important roles along with Chaucer, that one thing I would like to tell you about the bag that the important events of this age of Chaucer. Okay, important events of this the age of Chaucer, and the first one is that this 100 years wars. Yesterday we heard briefly talked about it, mm, but today I just want to give you some detailed description of this 100 years wars. The main cause of this 100 years wars was the dynastic struggle between struggle for the French throne. Following the death of this Philip the sixth and his son Louis VI, Louis X and Philip V and Charles IV, this Capetian dynasty came to an end, since no direct male heir existed, and Edward the Third of England and Philip the sixth grandson by his daughter Isabella asserted claim to the throne, and this was rejected by the French nobility, who preferred this Philip's nephew, Philip of Blois. And then this power struggle started. So the war is commonly divided into three phases, and these three phases separated by truces like the Edwardian era war. Then the second one is the Caroline War and the Lancastrian War. So uh, the Hundred Years War, time frame of it lasted from 1337 to let's say 1443, or sometime it was considered as the 1453. Yeah. uh, yes, this is the rough kind of mm, dividation, but let's say I would like to give you the exact one. The first one is Edwardian era. When we talk about this Edwardian era, let's say Edwardian era war, it's lasted from I would put it here, war. It lasted from 1337 to 1360. So this is the first page. Okay, then Caroline War. Second one is, yeah. When we talk about this Caroline War, it's from 1369 to 1389. This was the second period, and the third one is the Lancastrian Caroline. Okay, Lancastrian War. When specifically this Lancastrian War, we talked about it. This was considered as specifically the concluding one. Okay, there, let's say 1415 to 1453. You can see the gaps between the ages, but yes, it has different meanings behind it. Okay, so there is no a row connection. See, here we can find the 9 years gap. Okay, and from here from 89 to 15, uh, almost 30 years gap. But yeah, this was also the part of war over there. Okay, you may ask me, sir, why we're discussing these wars. Okay, this 100 years war was one of the important part of the history which affect the literature of the period. Okay, listen carefully what I'm trying to tell you, that this was the part of the history which has affected the upbringing, or let's say this was the part of the history which has affect the whole literature or the development of the literature in this regard. So this this Edwardian war was the first phase of this 100 years war, and lasting from this time frame which I have told you. And one of the important event in this war, that is the Treaty of Brittany. Okay, Treaty of Brittany. Mm, any history of English literature book will tell you about this one, so I'm not going that much deep into it. During this phase, Edward III's army defeated the French at the Battle of Crecy. You might have heard about the Battle of Crecy in 1346. and again in 1356 at the Battle of Poitiers. So these two battles, Battle of Poitiers and the Battle of Crécy, was the most crucial part, and we can find it was the important part of this Edwardian era. Okay. Uh, then a new king of the France, John II, was captured with the many other knights and taken to London. ती तो बघा किती म्हणजे गोष्टी कशा होत्या की अगोदर अँग्लो सॅक्सॉन्स तिथे ट्राईब्स होत्या, मग ते सगळे एकत्र झालेत, अँड देन वी कॅन फाइंड अ ग्रुप ऑफ किंगडम्स. त्यामध्ये किंग्स ते खूप झाले, मग नॉर्मन कॉन्क्वेस्ट झाला, नंतर ते लोक खूप स्ट्रॉंग बनलेत. ओके. आणि नंतर जेव्हा फ्रेंच इन्वेडर्स तिथं आले आणि दे जस्ट ट्राय टू कॅप्चर द लँड ऑफ इंग्लंड, वी see that how these all people gathered together. This nationalism had played an important role, and there is this 100 years war took place between the France and the England for the to capture the throne of to capture the French throne. ओके. हे खूप इंटरेस्टिंग पार्ट आहे सगळा, आणि सगळं लिटरेचर जे आहे ना ह्या सगळ्या गोष्टींच्या अवतीभोवती फिरतं. ओके. यू माइट हॅव हर्ड अबाउट द जॉन ऑफ आर्क. ओके. जॉन ऑफ आर्क एक खूप इम्पॉर्टंट आस्पेक्ट आहे फ्रेंचच्या फ्रेंच हिस्ट्रीच्या स्टार्टिंग पिरियड मधला. ओके. then as we move forward and see that this was the period where courtiers were busy in the warfare, so that's why less literature was produced. Okay. But whatever literature produced over there, it was the amalgamation of all thoughts, all what we can say varieties. Then as we know that this was the period where only Geoffrey Chaucer was the person who had played an important role in the realm of the literature. So whatever literature he has written, it was the reflection, whatever he has seen, whatever he had observed during his diplomatic missions, and we can check out it through his writing. And that's why we have his three periods of writing: first one the Italian period, the French period, and then the English period. Yeah. So these are the things. This is the how things goes on. Yeah. uh, the first After this first stage, that is the Edwardian era, second stage we have this Caroline War. So the Caroline War was the second phase of the 100 Years Wars, and it was named after the Charles V of France, Charles V of France, who resumed the war after the Treaty of this Brigady was signed in 1360. So again, there was a treaty happened, तह झाला होता ब्रिगेटीचा 1360 मध्ये. But we can find that when the new kings comes and they feel that yeah, I have the army, I have the power, so I will invade again and I will try to free my country. The same thing happened in the Caroline Year War. This Charles the Fifth of France, he invade again, and he just break this Treaty of Brigady in 1360, and he wanted to get back everything that France had lost, and his attempts proved successful actually. Finally, he defeated the English several times because of civil crisis and internal conflicts in the England, and that's why the second phase was considered that the French people was the winner of this second phase of the 100 Years War. Okay. But then what happened? Edward the Third had died, and his son, this Black Prince and John of Gaunt, had conflict with each other, and these quarrels, the Black Prince's misrule in Antiquin and the Black Death in the England helped the French to success. Under the leadership of this Duguesclin, the French army had won back this most of this territory, and that's why. We can find this Bertin du Goslin was the central character of this Caroline phase of this 100-year war. So, in Caroline period, we can find that is French became the superior, and then in the last phase where we can find this Lancastrian War. In Lancastrian War, that was the third phase of this Anglo-French War, and it lasted from 1415 when Henry V of England invaded Normandy, to 1429 when English successes were reserved by the arrival of this John of Arc, which I have told you. She pursued this Dauphin, Charles' eldest son, to give her an army with which she succeeded and gained the siege of these Orleans. Although she was captured and executed by these Burgundians, the French victory was closer and closer every day. Then we can find this phase followed this long series of peace lasting 1389. When the Caroline War, characterized by French victories, ended, the phase was so named because it had its beginning in the this plan of Henry the Fourth, the first of the House of Lancaster to sit on the English throne. Okay. Then I would like to tell you two different things. First thing, that is the result of the war. What is the result of the war? And then the second thing, that is effect of the war. First thing, result of the war. Though France is believed to have won the last major battle of the Hundred Years' War, both France and England emerged as a major nation states. Okay. And as we talk about the effect of the war, the increased expenditure on war meant increased taxes on common people, and this led to the social unrest in England. Uh, so this is the another thing which we must have an idea about, the background to the this age, and one of the important event of it, that is this 100 years war. Apart from this 100 years war, second one is the Black Death. Black Death was mm, lasted from 1348 to 1350, that is 2 years time frame. But before moving towards the Black Death, I would like to ask you that, yeah, whether you get my point. Are you okay? Whatever I'm telling you, are you getting it? If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Those who are online over there, okay, and offline students also. Any questions? Yeah. Are you okay with my pace? समजतंय शिकवलेलं? कळतंय? You have the chat box. Online students, you have the chat box. You can write down over there. Yeah. Yes. Any questions? You can reply over there. You can write down over there. The chat box you have. Take some active participation. It will help you, not me or not us. Yes. Kai questions? Yeah. I'm not strictly adhere to the English language. I know most of us, their medium of instruction is Marathi, even though in their masters. So I'm okay with it. If you want to shift to mother tongue also. Yes. Anything else which you want to ask? Any questions? आपल्याला क्वेश्चन पडत नाही याचे दोन अर्थ होतात. एक तर आपल्याला सगळं समजलं आणि आपल्याला काहीच नाही समजलं. होप दुसरा पॉइंट नसणार आहे. Yeah, I can see who's there uh, online and who is listening. Okay, the next thing is I'm just trying to speak you out, but if you don't want, no worries. Second thing is the Black Death, another major event of this age. The Black Death of this bubonic plague was one of the most devastating pandemic in human history. Okay, it spread across Europe in 1347 and killed more than 4 million people. As I told you yesterday, 13%, 13%, 13% of English population was killed by this Black Death, and it has um what we can say this it had changed the whole scenario of that the current period of that period. Okay, 13% population, it's it's too much. Okay, so this Black Death was considered as the second important event of this particular age, or the age of Chaucer. The third one, which is again very important, and several time question has been asked on this one. I would like to tell you this thing also. That is on 100 Years War. You had a question in NET exam, in SET exam also. Again on Black Death, you have the question, but specifically when you talk about this third event, that is the Peasants' Revolt. There was several time question has been asked on it, on peasant revolt. Okay, so the peasants revolt was took place in 1381. Okay, the peasants revolt was one of the number of popular revolts in late medieval Europe. Okay, the immediate cause of this uprising was imposition of the third poll tax, and it was the third time in 4th year that such a tax had been imposed, and that's why this crippling tax meant everyone over the age of 15 had to pay 1 shilling, since the people were already reeling under social and economic difficulties. As the result of Black Death, they refused to pay this tax, and this non-payment of taxes led to the series of official investigations. And then uh, these investigations leads the outbreak of the people's harmony, and we can find this peasant revolts take place in 1381. So the question which was asked on this peasant revolt was, who was the leader of peasants revolt took place in 1381? So the no one other than Yat Yat Tyler. Okay, this is the, when you talk about White Tyler, this was the person who is considered as the peasants revolt was considered as one of the important event in medieval Europe. Okay, not only in England. It was outbreak in 1381. The leader of peasants revolt is no one but Fiat Tyler. Okay. uh, and these are the events which had made very what we can say devastating kind of impact on the English society, and this leads to the social unrest or uncertainty in English society. So this is all the background or the some important events which took place in this particular period. Okay. When you talk about mm, the literary trends of the age, um, this was the period where we have 2 to 3 names which were associated with the literature, and we can find that they had played an important role. We'll move towards the Chaucer, as yesterday only we had discussed the background of Chaucer, and today we have decided to go for the works by the Geoffrey Chaucer. But I feel that you people must have an idea about these socio-political events which took place in this period, and that's why I have came back to this point, and I have decided to go through it. And before moving towards the Geoffrey Chaucer, there were several trends which was emerged in this period. The first and very important one, that is the alliterative revival. So what is this alliterative revival? This 14th century witnesses a revival of alliterative poetry, which culminated in the major masterpieces of Sir Gawain and the Great Knight. Okay, then you might have heard about this one, the Pearls and the Piers Plowman. These are several poems. This works breathed. We can find that the breakthrough um, breathed a new life into this traditional native English form inherited from these Anglo-Saxons. So this was not the new form of the literature, but they inherited it from these Anglo-Saxons. uh, but for this Anglo-Saxon, it was a totally oral tradition. These people who belongs to the age of Chaucer or the Middle English period, uh, they have shifted from this oral tradition to the written tradition. Okay, and the proof of it, that is several manuscripts we can find in the different English library even today. So these old English alliterative verse would not have been created or performed at court in England after this Norman conquest. But since the language of the court was French, and since Anglo-Norman poetry was typically written in rhyming couplet after this French fashion, there is a kind of negligence we can find towards this alliterative revival. But as the English people, they restored their own legacy over there, and we can find that English became the language of court in 1362. Then it the whole thing started changing. So this so-called nationalism, we can find it was emerged in English people, and it leads to the rebirth of this alliterative revival. Okay. By the late 14th century, the language of this court had shifted from this Anglo-Norman French to the Middle English, although courtiers would typically still know French, and French language poetry was still written by and quote these audiences between 1066 to 1300. Hardly any poetic manuscripts using the alliterative form survive. So see the negligence. He almost for 300 years, 1066 to 1300. Okay, 200. So we can find that there is no proper manuscript of alliterative revival over there. Okay, and that's why we can find that is these writers like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, then um, Pauls and the Piers Plowman, they had played an important role, and then the poetry started revived itself. Okay, but beside this Gawain poet's work, the alliterative revival includes the such works as William Langland's Piers Plowman. Okay, we're going to discuss these all works. But first of all, we'll discuss this Geoffrey Chaucer. I'm just giving you the brief idea about this one right now. First of all, we'll discuss the whole works of Geoffrey Chaucer, and then we'll move towards the minor writers of this age, like this one, um, William Langland or John Clerk of Wessex. Okay, then this Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This all kind of stuff. So this literary revival. After this one, there were several romances written in the age of Chaucer, as we have discussed in our last uh, era, that is in Anglo-Norman period. There was some several romances were written like Maître de France, then this the Owl and the Nightingale and Cursor Mundi kind of stuff. Some such kind of romances also written in this 13th century or 14th Middle English literature also. Okay, we'll discuss this Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and then the Pearl's Poet later. And now would like to move towards the main person of the age, that is Geoffrey Chaucer. Yeah. Yesterday we had discussed the background to the Geoffrey Chaucer, his three periods. Today we will move towards his literary works. The first one is the Book of the Duchess. The Book of the Duchess of Geoffrey Chaucer. So, as I told you, that is Geoffrey Chaucer was one of the key person in the court of England at that time. He had several important names and several important uh, mm, places he observed over there in the court of England at that time, and he was considered as one of the influential person of the particular period. So, nevertheless, we can't deny his contribution to the literature of the age, and as we had discussed already his background and his works, I would like to move directly towards his works. So the first one I would like to talk about, that is the Book of the Duchess. Uh, this is actually the manuscript of the Book of the Duchess. Okay. Uh, the Book of the Duchess is considered as the first major poems of Geoffrey Chaucer. This is an elegy written on the death of the Blanche, Duchess of Lancaster. Elegy for the Blanche of Lancaster. She was the Duchess, means wife of the Duke. Okay, she was died in 1369, and she was the wife of John Gaunt, son of Edward the Third of England. And as Geoffrey Chaucer has some political connections with John Gaunt, with his diplomacy as well as with his through his wife's ancestry, he had some deep connection with John Gaunt, and we can find that is it is written in the form of dream allegory, that is dream vision. It was written in dream allegory. It carries influences from these Gaulian Laurie's Roman de la Rose. So it was based on this one, that is we can call as a Roman de la Rose. The poem begins with this sleepless poet who lies in bed reading a book. He reads the story about his sex and alcohol, and wanders around in his thoughts. And this is he see that is the things goes on. Suddenly the poets fall asleep and dreams a wonderful story. In his dream he sees what? A man in black, a knight, who tells him about his courtship of a beautiful lady and his mourning for her death. When the poet awakes, he decided that this dream should be preserved in rhyme, and the poem serves twin purposes of elegy and eulogy. It is composed of more than 1300 lines in octosyllabic couplet. A stanza in which two lines contain 8 syllables, that is octosyllabic couplets, and then we can find that is it has 1300, 1300 lines. 1300 lines. The second one is the House of Fame. I don't know whether second important poems written by him, that is the House of Fame. Okay. uh, House of Fame written in 1379 and 80. This was his time frame. mm, this is again considered as the masterpiece of Geoffrey Chaucer. It is an autobiographical poem composed in 3 books. Okay, it is written in form of dream allegory. Book 1 begins with the narrator falling asleep and dreaming about this temple dedicated to the goddess Venus. And inside the temple, he finds inscriptions that depict the story of Virgil's Aeneid. So, this thing only will tell us, uh, will tells us that mm, this book has the influence of Virgil's Aeneid. Okay. Rest of the book portrays Dido's betrayal by Aeneas In book 2, the narrator is carried by an eagle which speaks to him in a human voice and assures him that Joe was decided to reward him by sending him to the House of Fame. Okay. In book 3, he reaches the House of Fame and meets the goddess's Fame. The allegorical description of this house and its inhabitants is left unfinished. So, the poem carries influence of this Boccaccio, as I told you, Ovid, Virgil's Aeneid, and Dante's Divine Comedy. The main theme of the poem in rhyme royal stanza form and it relies upon the beast fable tradition. Okay. It presents a vision of bird gathered to choose their mates on Saint Valentine's Day. The poem begins with these narrators reading the Cicero's dream of Scipio, and his reading is awarded by the appearance of these visionary guides. Then he is led to Venus temple where the Parliament of Birds is being held, and this is how the story of the Parliament of Fools goes on. Okay. The next work written by the Chaucer is very famous. That is Troilus and Cresside. Okay, Troilus and Cresside is Chaucer's longest poem of about 8,000 lines. Okay, it is divided into five books. How many? Five books. Okay. This book shows this Philostra that what was written in 1330 is the source of this poem. So the Troilus and Cresside is based on Boccaccio's Philostrato. Okay, Philostrato. By Boccaccio. Then, as we see, uh, this one, this Chaucer transformed this Boccaccio story into the psychological novel in verse. Hmm. It creates the character of this Pandarus, Cressida's uncle. Historical backdrop of the poem is Trojan War. That is the one thing we must have an idea. That is the historical background to this work. That is the Trojan War, shown the pride of the person, one of the important character, that is the Pandarus, as I told you. Actually, this poem is about the tragic love affair of this Trojan prince Troilus and a young, beautiful widow, that is Cressida. We know this Cressida's father has abandoned Troy and shifted loyalty to the Greek side. Though an exchange of these prisoners, Cressida goes over to her father in the Greek camp and leaves swearing loyalty to Troilus. And however, she meets a Greek escort, this Diomed, changes her mind and proves unfaithful. So, this is a kind of love story about this Troilus and Cressida, and it has given the different angles, political angles, then philosophical angle, as well as we can say these family matters also. But the end of this poem, that is Troilus and Cressida, was very devastating. Mm. So just it was considered as the one of the famous masterpiece by Geoffrey Chaucer. Uh, the next work written by him, which is again considered as one of the famous one, that is the Legend of Good Woman. The Legend of Good Woman, written in 1380s. It is written in the form of dream vision. Again, most of his poems were written in dream vision, and it is also one of them. Uh, it contained a prologue and the nine stories. The prologue To the book cites reasons behind Chaucer's collection of stories about good women. Cupid, the god of love, this accuses Chaucer of defaming women by writing works which are critical of this romantic love and women. Actually, this the Legend of Good Women, it recounts the stories of women from history and myth who were martyred to love, such as Dido, Thisbe, then Medea, Cleopatra, then Haspiel, then Eridan, Lucrece, Phyllis, then Philomela, and Hypermnestra. These are the several names of these women. Okay, this book is Chaucer's take on the women's question, considered to be attack on anti-feminism. But still, the Legend of the Good Woman is considered as one of the Chaucer's unfinished book. Uh, Now I would like to move towards one of the famous and most acclaimed work by the Geoffrey Chaucer, and that is nothing but the Canterbury Tales, which is considered as his famous poems. Okay, so the Canterbury Tales were written from 1386 to 95. Chaucer's most acclaimed work, and we can find the Canterbury Tales is a collection of stories narrated by 29 pilgrims on their way to the shrine of Martin, that Saint Thomas Becket in Canterbury. Most of the time, we have the question asked in net and set both exams on Canterbury Tales, and to the background of Canterbury Tales also. So first one, the Canterbury Tales is a collection of short stories narrated by 29 pilgrims. So there was 24 stories which was narrated by 29 pilgrims. Okay, again these all were disputed, but I know that is all of us have an idea about it. Uh, some historians consider that there was 30 pilgrims, um, including Geoffrey Chaucer, and some of them they consider it the 29. But yeah, the 24 story are the fixed one. Mm, Again, they are the pilgrims on their way to the shrine of martyr Saint Thomas Becket in Canterbury. Okay, all the pilgrims gathered at the Bard in Southwark in preparation for their pilgrimage. Harry Bailey, okay, again another name associated with this one. The host of the inn, that is the Bard Inn, suggests a storytelling contest, according to which the pilgrim with the best story would be awarded an elegant dinner at the end of the trip, and the host himself becomes the judge of the contest. When we just try to find out the myth behind Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, actually Chaucer originally planned that each character should narrate four tales, but out of this original 120, only 24 tales got written. The book also contains a general prologue which provides the characterization of the pilgrims. The pilgrims represents all sections of society from gentry to humble craftsmen. The only absentee are the laboring poor, unable to afford the pilgrimage of this kind. So we can find it the represent of the contemporary. It's considered as the representation of the contemporary English society. Okay. There are respectable people from the various classes, such as knight, the Parson, the Yemen, but the emphasis falls mainly on characters who are pretentious, scurrilous, Mendanius, and this avaricious or licentious. So all kind of characters we can find mm, that uh, Geoffrey Chaucer had introduced through his work. So this is the thing which will tell us the Canterbury Tales, his famous work, Canterbury. The question comes here: why go to Canterbury? There is one answer, that is the religion. Canterbury has always been an important religious center in England, and religion played an important part in the medieval life. And why these people were going to the Canterbury? To visit the shrine of Saint Thomas Becket. Okay, uh, which was the shrine of martyr, the Saint Thomas Becket in Canterbury, and these people was on the pilgrimage. Yeah, when we talk about the themes of these Canterbury Tales, they described by the different categories, like described by their job, the type and color of their clothing, their accessories, like jewelry, pets, other portables, no, the way they act, their income, their secrets, then their status in society as a whole, the way they speak their slang or accent, their mode of transportation. When we talk about the Canterbury tells, we can find it is nothing but the execution of William Geoffrey Chaucer's mm, a deep vision and um, what we can call it, his great grasping power of the society. How uh, his ground rooted to the society. It was a description we can find through his works. His keen observation also described through this mm, through his works. Mm, uh, and how he was deeply rooted in the society, and he has an idea about all the strata of the society. That was all we can find. It was uh, um, described through his writing. Canterbury tells. So we have this much tells over there. Just have a look on it. We're not going to deal with the all tells, but mm, most of them which are important for us, we'll talk about that. I would like to read these all tells for you. First one, we have general prologue. Then we have Knight's Tale, the Miller's Tale, Reeve's Tale, then Cook's tale, man of law's tale, Shipman's tale, the prioress tale, Sir Thopas tale, the tale of Melibee, we have the monk's tale, the nun priest's tale, then the physician's tale, the pardoner's tale, then we have the wife of Bath's tale, the friar's tale, the summoner's tale, okay, then the clerk's tale, the merchant's tale, the squire's tale, the franklin's tale, second nun's tale, the canon yeoman's tale, the manciple's tale, and the parson's tale. Okay, here we have this one. The knight's tale is one of the important ones. Again, we have this the prioress tale, monk tale, the monk tale, nun priest tale. We have the question on it. The wife of Bath, one of the important characters, and the tale of it. Then we have this one, second nun's tale. So these six tales are very important. We have the question, the squire's tales also. Sometimes we had question asked on these tales. Eventually, when just go through it, we come to know about it. Each tale has a general prologue. Here we can find a description of that particular person, and then the person has told the story. Okay. So these tales, which are the description of that particular character's thought, we must have to gone through it and have a look into it. It will give you the different kind of stuff. So first one, the Knight's Tale, which is considered as a romance. Again, the arrangement of the tales according to the general strata of the society, or let's say the place of the characters in the society. According to it, he had just arranged the all tales. So that is the one thing, and that's why we have the first is the Knight's Tale. Okay, the Knight's Tale is a tell the story of Theseus, a prince who married his Hippolyta, another character, the queen of Scythia, and brought her sister Emily back to the Athens with him after conquering her kingdom of Amazon. Then this outside Athens, he meets the band of weeping women and learns that the tyrant uh, Theon had murdered their husband and dishonor the the deeds by the leaving them unburied. So this was the tales goes on, and yeah, just go through the tell. You can get anywhere in every history of English literature book. You can got this tale. So just have a look into it. But as I told you, these are some important tales which I have told you. The Knight's Tale is the important one. The Prioress Tale, the another one. Wife of Bath Tale is considered as one of the famous ones, which has the different connotations. The Prioress Tale, which we have over here, it's nothing but considered as the miracle of the Virgin. The question on this Prioress Tale has been asked in NET and SET both exam. Um, there is a story where a Christian town in Asia there was a Jewish ghetto and one boy who just praising the Lord. Uh, his Jewish people just cut his throat and just put it into the kind of slum area, and it had when they just uh, it was taking his singing as a direct insult. A group of these wicked Jews conspired the murder of this little child, and they hire a killer who slits the little boy's throat and throws his body into the drain. But after even throwing it into the drain, that child's voice break forth singing, that is Om Alma Redemptions and kind of story. So this is a kind of religious tale we have here, that is the prayer tale. Okay, the next one is the um, non tale. The genre of this non tale is nothing but a beast fable in which animals behave like a human being, and consequently this type of fable is often an insult to man or a commentary on man's foibles. One of the best example of this beast fable is Animal Farm. We have an idea about it. Most of us had studied it. So the story, Nan Pristel, is a kind of the depiction of this story, which we can call as the beast fable. Okay, in which animal behaves like a human being. So next one after Nancy is wife of Bastel, as I told you. Wife tale and second Nancy. There are several important tales. Apart from it, I would like to tell you several trails and their genre was from, and a short summary of it. Like um, let's say this one, the Monk's Tale, that was a tragedy, and Monk's Tale stanza was this eight four stress line iambic rhyming sense. It was the collection of these tragedies designed to advise men not to trust in blind prosperity, but into be aware of the fortune is fickle and ever changing. Then uh, the Reeve tale was kind of a fabulous. The Wives of Bath's Tale is considered as an Arthurian romance. So, sorry. The Miller's Tale is again the fabulous, and as we just go forward, we see that is these all tales are nothing but the depiction of the contemporary English society, and it is based on the different characters and their characteristics. Okay. Any questions regarding this? Anything else which you want to ask, which you want to add? Yeah, I have just given you an overview of the Canterbury Tales and the Canterbury Tales, which is based on the different one. If you have any questions regarding this, please feel free to ask. Tomorrow we'll have a overlook on these Canterbury Tales and their depiction in the English literature, and then we'll move towards the other writers of the Middle English period, and then we'll move towards the next era, that is very famous one, Queen Elizabethan literature or Elizabethan age. Okay, as I told you, I'm not going this way, like I'm not going through the drama, poetry kind of stuff. I'm just going the era wise. So in that particular era, whatever literature has been written or whatever literature has been produced, we discuss about it. Okay, so right now we just discussing the poetry of this age. We also discuss the prose of the last age. We will try to find out if we have any prose associated with this age. We'll go for it. I know that there is no drama written in this age, so need not to talk about it. But yes, in Elizabethan age, we have to discuss these all genres like poetry, drama, short stories, and the all units. Okay, so hope you just getting this, and if you have getting this all things, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Anything else which you want to add, you're welcome. Canterbury Tales and Geoffrey Chaucer is considered as one of the important aspect of the history of English literature. So we can't deny his contribution into the history of English literature, and that's why we have to study him thoroughly. So, is there anything else which we can do for it? Please let me know. Otherwise, I have some concrete plans. Okay. Hope you getting my point. समझते हैं कि पूरा करते हैं